Hello guys and welcome to Strawberry Inc. Today our focus will be the country of Colombia. I would like to pause and apologize for any background noises you may hear, as once again I am in a living room with my dog beside me and some stuff going on behind me. Anyways, let's get back into the episode. In Colombia, true crime is not as popular as it is in the United States. However, like every country, there is crime. One crime case that really stood out to me was about an architect in the country's capital, Bogota. This was one of the few cases that was streamed on live television in the history of Colombia's legal system. By the way, if you are interested in seeing a court case occurring in Colombia, tune into my YouTube channel, Strawberry Inc., because pretty soon I plan to start live streaming them. There was a girl who lived happily in Bogota. Her name was Yuliana Samboní, and she was 7 years old, living in a working class neighborhood with her family. Yuliana came from a poor family. On December 4th, 2016, she had been outside playing with her cousin. Around that time, 38-year-old Rafael Uribe Noguerra had been driving around the neighborhood and seemed to have been stalking the two. He then opened the driver's seat door of his car and snatched Yuliana, driving away with her. Her cousin informed the rest of his family, and Yuliana's parents called the police. A search for her started, and the kidnapping would start being investigated. Meanwhile, Rafael took Yuliana to an apartment where he would often stay at, which was owned by his brother Francisco. On his way there, Rafael had called the apartment complex's security guard to inform that he had a child with him. He asked to have nobody let into the apartment. When Rafael entered the apartment, carrying Yuliana with his arm wrapped around her throat, he pressed her down, and then held his hands on her mouth and neck for hours, while biting her face. Yuliana became unconscious due to her lack of oxygen, which led Rafael to pulling his clothing down and undressing her. He then started having sex with her, raping her. While doing so, he continued grabbing her throat and mouth tightly. She then passed away. The police in Colombia investigated several surveillance footages to track down where Rafael had gone. He was identified through his vehicle's license plate, and a manhunt for him started. Rafael was a frequent drug user and would get high at parties he would host with several sex workers and cross-dressers. After killing Yuliana, he would try to kill himself by overdosing. When his sister Catalina found out that authorities in Colombia were searching for him, she tried contacting him but got no response. Both Catalina and their brother Francisco went to the apartment to check on Rafael, finding him in an unstable condition. Francisco and Catalina then left the apartment and got on a taxi with Rafael. The police obtained permission to investigate him. They located the black van that he had been driving and searched it. A white shoe was found inside it, along with hairs. They reviewed the national records containing the van's license plate and obtained the driver's license image of Rafael. The vehicle was parked in front of the apartment complex where he took Yuliana. Police checked the complex's security cameras, finding footage of him taking her into the apartment. In the footage, she was only wearing one shoe and her other foot was bare. The person seen carrying Yuliana had a face that matched the one of Rafael's in his driver's license image, so they knew he was indeed the suspect. The police then entered the apartment where Rafael took her to and searched it. They found a black jacket on the ground that he was seen wearing in the security footage, as well as a nearby empty bottle of cooking oil. At the apartment's bathroom, they found Yuliana's dead body in the bathtub. She was completely nude and dipped in this cooking oil. On the top of the bathroom's toilet, a bag of clothes was found. Inside this bag was a red bracelet and female child clothing. This clothing being a shirt, pants, and underwear. There was also another white shoe, which was the same type of shoe as the other one found in Rafael's van. The dead body was transported to the city's forensic science office and examined. Yuliana's dad cooperated with authorities during the investigation, while the body's DNA was being investigated. The body was then confirmed as her. An autopsy was conducted, ruling her cause of death as a murder by strangulation. Her throat and face had red marks, including bite marks. The examination concluded that she had been grabbed by the throat and mouth for a long time, and that she had been bitten in the face multiple times. DNA was collected from her body. The bite marks came from a DNA that was not hers. She tested positive for rape due to her having lacerations of rapid sexual activity, and between her legs, that same unknown DNA was discovered. The clothing and bracelet found in the toilet did have her DNA and were confirmed as hers, but the black jacket found on the ground was not. The examination also confirmed that she was covered in cooking oil, most likely the same cooking oil from the bottle that was found on the ground. Her DNA only matched some of the hairs found inside the van, and the other ones matched the other DNA of the unknown person. Lastly, the shoes found in the van and apartment's bathroom were checked. They were white flats that most little girls wear barefooted. That is because there are barely any ankle socks available for girls to wear them when they are that young. The shoe's insole was as well white but had a gray footprint from the dust of Yuliana's feet. The dusty footprint was the same on each shoe, meaning that they were worn without socks and by the same girl. Since the shoes had most likely been worn without socks, it was very easy getting DNA. Those who knew her were also certain that she always wore this pair without socks, so it made sense if her DNA was in them. Also, due to the size of her feet, it seemed that the shoe would definitely fit her. The DNA inside both shoes matched Yuliana's, confirming that they were hers. Another security camera captured scenes outside of the complex, showing Rafael and his siblings fleeing in a taxi. More surveillance footage around the city was checked to track down where this taxi left them. They then came to find out that the taxi had dropped them off at a hospital called Clínica Vascular Navarra. The police went to this hospital and asked for Rafael. The hospital staff guided them to the room where he was being treated for a drug overdose, which seemed to have been a suicide attempt. Rafael was then put into custody and handcuffed to his hospital bed. In the room were his siblings Francisco and Catalina. Rafael had tried to fatally overdose on drugs and alcohol. He tested positive on these two substances, the drugs being cocaine. DNA was collected from him, which matched the one on the black jacket found in the apartment, concluding that it was his jacket. Rafael's DNA also matched the one of Yuliana's bite marks and genitals, meaning that he was her attacker and rapist. Lastly, it matched the DNA found in a part of the hairs obtained from his black van. Detectives found it suspicious that Yuliana's body was covered in oil and that her clothes were tucked in a bag. They thought, how could somebody under the influence like Rafael cover up a crime so neatly? The police believed that his siblings helped him out by covering up the crime because in the surveillance footage, They are seen not leaving the apartment until a while later. Siblings Francisco and Catalina were then ordered to give out their information to police, because they would not be arrested but placed under investigation. Both complied with these orders. Francisco worked as a lawyer and Catalina as an architect with Rafael. They then left the hospital and waited to be charged. Rafael was medically treated for his drug overdose and then released from the hospital. He was taken out in handcuffs in order to be placed in a truck of Colombia's National Police. On his way out, many civilians tried to beat Rafael. The police had protected and blocked him with shields until he finally entered the truck. He was then taken to the headquarters of Colombia's Fiscalía, an agency that investigates violent crimes. There, he was processed and appeared virtually on Microsoft Teams for his first court hearing. Magistrate Diana Cadena ruled Rafael a flight risk to society and ordered that he remain in custody while awaiting trial. He as well had his charges read to him: kidnapping, violent carnal access, rape, and murder. After this virtual hearing, Rafael Uribe Noguerra was placed into the La Picota prison in Bogota to await trial. This is a prison where the most violent and disturbing offenders of the area are held to await trial. Rafael at first pleaded not guilty to the charges. However, due to overwhelming evidence against him, he afterwards changed that plea to guilty. Data from Rafael's phone was collected. He had been in contact with his siblings during the crime. The siblings had received messages from him which were afterwards deleted. Once their investigation wrapped up, both siblings, Francisco and Catalina Noguera, were ordered to appear in court. Before that, they had to surrender to the same headquarters where Rafael was processed in order for themselves to be processed there as well. The evidence against them was not strong enough to take them into custody, so they freely left the building after being processed. In their first court hearing at the Palo Quemao Judicial Complex, it was announced that both faced a charge of obstruction of justice, one in which they pleaded not guilty to. Magistrate Alexandra Osa Sanchez confirmed that both would not be taken into custody to await trial and would remain free unless being convicted by one of the court's judges. Authorities as well investigated the phone calls that Rafael made to the apartment complex's security guard. He had apparently asked him to not let anyone into the apartment. In the surveillance footage, this guard is seen talking on the phone at the same time the call was being made. He is then seen actively guarding the apartment where Rafael later entered with Yuliana. The police then speculated that this security guard had been aiding Rafael to commit this crime without any interruptions. The complex's director was questioned by detectives and gave out this guard's name, Fernando Merchan, as well as his home address. The director then called Merchan, shaming him for letting Rafael bring this kidnapped girl into the apartment. He was fired from the job and informed that the police were also now looking for him. Merchan then overdosed on prescription antidepressants and died by suicide. The police headed to his home to arrest him and raided it, finding him dead. Merchan's body was taken to the same office where Yuliana's body was examined. The director that had been questioned provided the drug test of Merchan that he took to become a security guard, as well as several employment records. The DNA within this information confirmed his body. An autopsy was then conducted on him, ruling the cause of death as a suicide by suffocation, which had occurred due to him overdosing on strong medications. At his home, the empty bottle of his medication was found and tied to his death, A suicide note with his name on it was also obtained. The note left a sad message apologizing to his family for ruining their Christmas by taking his own life, and claiming that he did not want to go back to jail. He also claimed that he was innocent of this crime. Medchan's background check that he took before becoming a security guard showed that he had a criminal record for an offense that had been committed 15 years prior. In 2001, he had been accused of drug trafficking and was tried for it, while being detained at a jail in Bogota known as Cárcel Distrital. After being convicted, he spent 3 years at Colombia's Modelo prison. Medchan's body was placed in the care of a funeral home known as Funeral Chapels of Faith, where his visitation was held, and his service was held at a church known as the Iglesia Nueva Apostólica Kennedy. He was cremated and the ashes were given to his family. On the other hand, Yuliana's body was placed in the care of a funeral home known as Funeraria Los Olivos in a neighborhood of Bogota called Palmero. Her service was held at a church known as Iglesia de Santa Teresita, and she was afterwards buried at a cemetery in Bogota's neighborhood, Bolivar, known as the Camposanto Los Milagros. On January 11, 2017, Rafael Uribe Noguerra was put on trial to decide what sentence he would get, and was represented by defense attorney Álvaro Rolando Pérez. The case's prosecutor, Néstor Humberto Martínez, seeked the maximum prison sentence, which was 60 years. After detectives testified at the Palo Quemao Judicial Complex, it was time for the judge, Maria Estela Jara, to review the case and decide on a sentence. On March 30th of that year, Rafael was sentenced to 51 years and 10 months in prison. He was fined 35,000 pesos, which in American money is $25,000. The sentences for each charge were delivered consecutively: 45.8 years for murder, 4 years for rape, 2 years for kidnapping, and the fine he received for the torture charge, violent carnal access. After sentencing, he was transported to a maximum security prison in Valledupar, Colombia, known as La Tramacua. Siblings Francisco and Catalina were put on trial. The detectives in the investigation as well testified at the same court for this second trial. An audio recording from a phone call that Rafael made to detectives from the jail in Bogota was also shown, one in which he admitted to killing Yuliana, detailing how he did so, and admitting to trying to commit suicide afterwards. The siblings faced no maximum sentence, and the court could decide how much prison time they deserved to spend. They were represented by attorneys Pedro Aguilar, serving for Francisco, and Wilson Carena, serving for Catalina. The presiding judge, Luis Galvez, would then take his time to deliberate and reach a verdict for both defendants. Then on August 9th of that year, when the verdict was due, Francisco and Catalina were both found not guilty. This was because Judge Galvez believed that the siblings did not intend on helping Rafael evade justice. He believed that the siblings would have taken Rafael to another country if their intentions were to purposely obstruct justice. The prosecutor, Néstor Humberto Martínez, appealed the verdicts for both of them. Then, on December 16th of that year, Colombia's Supreme Court of Justice made a ruling on the 4 appeals: 2 for the verdicts against Rafael's brother Francisco and sister Catalina, one to reduce Rafael's sentence and one to increase Rafael's sentence. This higher court rejected all appeals and the case's outcomes would remain as they were. Thank you for listening. Please make sure to like and share this podcast to someone who may be interested in them. Until next time, goodbye.